my game right now. I didn't remember that my co-chairman and I had decided that I would be the afternoon chairman of the committee. So we will go to our number 12 item on our list, considering bill drafts. And the first one, if I could ask State Parks to come up, or Luke to come up, and or both, and we'll look at LSO 0132, the High Plains Arboretum Administration.
Madam Chairman, I'm happy to do a quick run through of 24 LSO-0132. This is the High Plains Arboretum State Historic Site. This bill draft designates the High Plains Arboretum in Laramie County as a state historic site. It provides that it will be called the High Plains Arboretum State Historic Site, and requires the Department of State Parks and Cultural Resources to prepare a plan of operation for the site under their comprehensive plan that's provided in statute, the requirements there. The department is authorized to enter into leaseholder concession agreements in accordance with that plan, and funds received by the department pursuant to that subsection will be deposited into the state parks account. And then the second newly created subsection is just some additional pieces. I just want to briefly mention, I went into the statutory provisions for state parks and state historic sites. And so a lot of this language was kind of, borrowed from and modeled after a couple of the different ones that we have. And I just was trying to get a good idea of making sure that, since I believe this site is still in process of being, kind of established, I guess at least they're going through their process right now is what I'm trying to say. So, so the second section just says that the Department of State Parks shall administer, operate, and maintain the High Plains Arboretum, and that they may, under lease agreement or contract management agreement, provide for special events at the state historic site. And that statutory reference is just relating back to that. The Department of State Parks and Cultural Resources may impose an admission fee in excess of the fees that are charged for admissions to other state parks and sites under statute to fund necessary expenses incurred for development, operations, personnel, and maintenance of the High Plains Arboretum. Those funds collected from the admission fees can be deposited in a separate account and continuously appropriated to the department to pay expenses as authorized. And then the remaining money at the end of the year just shall be deposited into the state parks account. And then they have to provide reporting on that for the immediately preceding 2 fiscal years. Section 2 of the bill on the bottom of page 4 is just the template for an appropriation if the committee were to choose to do so. This may just be whether you would like to see an additional appropriation for the purposes of development and initial operation of the High Plains Arboretum. And the bill is effective July 1st, 2024. With that, I'd stand for any questions.
Any questions from the committee? So maybe Mr. Nalen can address the dollar amount. I think that what I was led to believe is that we'll have a clearer number in October for our October meeting, and we may just want to put this on the back burner, revisit it in October when there's a more clear expectation of what the dollar amount will be to complete this project.
Madam Chairwoman, Nick Nealon, Deputy Director, State Parks. I think that's probably a fair way to look at this. The site criteria process that we've undergone has, as we mentioned last time, been a little bit expedited. And while we've gone through the bulk of the process, the one thing we haven't done yet is gather public comment, critical part of the process. But because of when your meeting fell, we just weren't able to even begin to initiate that beforehand. We have very rough estimates about what we think it'll cost to run the site. Those are estimates that we've put together working with the city of Cheyenne, the USDA folks, and we have had our engineer take a first look at the capital construction projects that would need to take place to bring everything back to where it needs to be. Very, very rough numbers that I don't think are probably going to end up being particularly accurate. So if we could wait till October to give you those numbers, I think we could do a much better job with it.
So I guess is the committee good with waiting till October to take this up? Seem nodding of heads. Okay. Do we have, does the committee have any questions on the bill as it sits now? Are there any questions or comments? Representative Burkhart?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Excuse me. Okay, there. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm looking at page 2, 36-1801A, right at the end. The department shall by rule specify the legal description of the state historic site. I guess I would ask that if we're going to bring this back in October, that we have an actual description included. I don't want to see another project like the Sutton project where we don't know what we're getting into when we get it. So I know that can be, looking at the map that you've given us, can be a little bit of trial and error to get the description, but I think there are enough corners in here where a legal description could be established. Thank you.
Mr. Nayland, that's a possibility, or?
Madam Chairman, Representative Burkhart, absolutely, that's something that we will do. And one of the reasons we couldn't do that today is that we haven't settled with the city of Cheyenne on exactly what the border is going to be of the property. We're still working on the definition of the site. It started off as a smaller piece of property. We looked at trying to preserve the entire site to ensure that the cultural landscape stayed intact. And so we're still working through those details. Again, because of when your committee meeting fell, we just weren't able to get all that information.
And Chairman, follow up. So this doesn't include the entire site. Who keeps ownership of the other portion?
Madam Chair, Representative Burkhart, so the entire site is over 2,000 acres. When we were originally approached with the idea of this, it was something like 66 acres or something like that. We took a look at the property and determined that there's about 900 acres roughly that falls within that historic cultural landscape. The rest of the property would continue to be owned by the city and managed by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. They have the Grasslands Research Center out there that would continue to operate.
Follow up? Anyone else? Co-Chairman Schuler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just my question would be just, I'd like to kind of hear what the city of Cheyenne, what their thoughts are in terms of collaboration, or if there's someone here from the city of Cheyenne, I would like to hear a little bit more, even though you haven't finished it and haven't had your public comment, but I would love to hear a little bit of an input on that.
Would you like to come up?
Madam Chairman, members of the committee, I am Mayor Patrick Collins from the city of Cheyenne. I think my purpose for being here today was to maybe just share a little bit of our perspective. This facility started in 1928, and it's got this beautiful history of explorers going all over the world to try to find trees that would grow in the high, dry, windy places that we live. And so they spent years planting and figuring out what trees would work. And when Cheyenne first started, we had 12 trees. Now we have hundreds of thousands of beautiful trees. And a lot of that is because of the history of this site. And so it's a beautiful place. It's a piece of living history. And we're slowly losing it because the city doesn't have the resources to be able to develop what I think the potential of this place is. And so we have asked state parks to look at this site for potentially a state park or a historic place of some sort where we could collaborate to bring it back to life, to make sure that those historic trees are saved, those historic buildings are saved, and make it available to everybody so they can learn how these trees that we have here in the West came to be, and hopefully have everybody share that.
Follow up, Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just a question. I'm not sure where this is. I wondered if we go back down to Cheyenne for our next meeting, it'd be great to get a little tour out there and see a little bit more about it, maybe see it, on the ground. It seems we work really good when we have tours and field trips, so would that be
Madam
possible?
Chairman, we've taken our trolley with large groups of people out here recently, would love to do that for you. It's literally immediately west of the base. So the Air Force Base touches the city, and just immediately on the western side of that is a couple thousand acres of land the city leased to the USDA in 1928, and they've been doing lots of scientific research on agricultural processes since then, and we would love to take you guys out there. I have a lady named Jessica who works for us, who wrote the book that I saw at least on one person on the table here. So she's a great tour guide, knows the history, knows the trees, and we'd love to do that for you.
That sounds great. Any other questions?
Madam Chair.
Representative Burkhart.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So, Mr. Hollis, I'm a little confused, excuse me. You don't have the resources to keep what you want to transfer to state parks, but you have the resources to keep more than half of the property? The city of Cheyenne does?
Mr. Mayor.
I'm a little confused here, so.
Madam Chairman, to the representative, sir, the rest of it is all leased out to the USDA, has since 1928. They manage and operate all of the rest of that property. So the city has no, while we own the property, we have no responsibilities or financial responsibilities for the rest of that. Now, it's a 199-year lease, so at some point in the future, we'll get that area back. But at this point, it's all USDA. They've given back the Arboretum to us. We did a lease revision. We got back the Arboretum, the historic trees, and then recently we got back the greenhouse, the lath house, the head house, which is a place where we hope to, maybe in the next year or so, start to grow trees that we would then be able to give to state forestry, our conservation district, and also for the city's use. Apparently, finding trees for both the state and the city are becoming bigger challenges. And so we have this historic greenhouse that we're going to refurbish and go back into the manufacturing or growing of trees that we'll be able to then use Wyoming trees for Wyoming places.
Representative Burkhart. Yep.
So, thank you, Madam Chairman. So about how many people visit the Arboretum a year? Do you have any numbers on visitation or anything like that?
Madam Chairman, I probably should ask that before I came, and I honestly have. I know one of our senators goes on a regular basis, but as far as the rest of the population, I honestly could not tell you.
So, Senator, that's one.
And her
One
family.
very important one, sir.
Senator
Okay,
Ellis.
two. We know of two people. Okay, yeah. Thank
Follow-up?
you.
Representative, no.
Madam Chairwoman, if I could ask Christine, I think she might have some information about the visitation.
Yes, please.
Madam
Tell us
Chair,
who you
my name
are
is
and-
Christina Bird. I'm the district manager for the southeast section of Wyoming State Parks, Historic Sites and Trails. I believe that they probably right now have less than 500 to 1,000 people visit per year. And that's mainly because it's not marketed as a public and open space. It's being used specifically for, it's like our little hidden gem in Cheyenne. And so if you know that it's there, you know you can access it and go walk around it, but it's not marketed.
Representative Byron.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Yeah, and maybe this is going to be a stab at it, but with your knowledge of the southeast corner, do you have a guess if it was properly marketed and brought up to the standards that we're discussing, roughly, given some other parks or different places that have similar size and attractions and historical value, how many visitors may or attend once it's brought up to par?
Christine.
Madam Chair, Representative Byron, we have those numbers. I mean, Kirk Gowdy State Park gets upwards of 500,000 visitors a year. The Wyoming Territorial Prison in Laramie gets upwards of, 40,000 visitors a year. And so, somewhere between there, we could get you a more accurate number.
Follow up? Any other questions? Senator Jones.
Madam Chair, I just had a question. It says on here that the evaluation team listed it as a moderate priority category. Is there anything in the high priority category right now that's waiting to be finished?
Madam Chairwoman, Senator Jones, a couple things. First of all, that ranking is the highest ranking of any project that we've ever done. It does fall within the high moderate end of the scale, but it's still the highest thing we've ever done. Right now, the only other project that we have completed the site criteria process on is Gray Rocks Reservoir. We stopped short of doing public comment on that project because this popped up. And after we're finished with this project, we'll go back to that and look at doing some public engagement there as well. So it scored much lower than this project did, but still, I think it fell in the medium range.
Any other questions from the committee? Representative Angeles.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. I do have a question. Do you have like a ballpark of how much it's going to take to restore it to what you think? Like, what would it cost the state or the city, however you guys are going to do that? Do you have a ballpark figure?
Mr. Nayland.
The initial estimate that we had to, not anything to do with operations, but just the initial capital construction to restore all the buildings, restore some of the irrigation systems, things like that, to get it to where we could use it for what we wanted to interpret it as the historic site, so that forestry, urban forestry, the city, the Botanic Gardens could use it. It's a little bit north of $17 million total.
You have a follow-up? Any other questions?
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
the part of that the city's going to take on as far as the production of trees, we think we're going to spend about $3 million to rehabilitate the greenhouse. That's the word I was looking for, gosh darn it. To reestablish the greenhouse and all the things that we need to do there, the pump buildings and things. We're going to be about $3 million in order to be able to do that, to start the production of trees.
So then I have a question is, do you have a time frame in which, I'm assuming then you'll sell the trees, and would you have a time frame in which you would recoup that expense?
Madam Chairman, I'm not sure we'll ever recoup the expense because I don't know that selling trees to the state or to ourselves is going to be a money-making proposition. But I think the difference in the quality of our life will make it. So I think it's going to be a one-time thing. And then my hopes would be we can continue to pay the ongoing expenses of running the day-to-day operation through the selling of the trees. From what I understand, the state doesn't need big trees. They just little saplings that you plant when you reforest. And the conservation district is the same way. We use about 2-inch caliber trees, which will take us about 5 years to produce before we can start planting them in our Rooted in Cheyenne program.
Any other committee questions? Okay, so I think that we'll ask for public comment. Oh, did you have? You sure, Don? Yes. Okay. So I guess we will ask for public comment on this particular bill. So if you could come up and tell us who you are.
Okay. Madam Chairman, members of the committee, John Chris, Wyoming State Forestry Division. The Forestry Division's had a long history with the Arboretum, about over 20 years, trying to help protect this property and preserve the trees there. It's a very special place. Many of the trees are rare. Some of them possibly irreplaceable. And this, this is probably over 800 trees in the Arboretum proper. Additional couple thousand more on the larger property. And this is a place that still has potential for Wyoming and the greater Rocky Mountain region. Many of the plants there are not in commercial production, but do have the potential to be. And we feel that the trees would, they need specialist care, and that they would benefit from a position dedicated to the care of the tree asset themselves. Wyoming State Forest Division would be happy to do anything that we can to help make this endeavor successful. And we did submit this publication. We thought that the committee would really find it useful. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much. Any questions? No? Okay. Then if you want to go forward.
Madam Chair, Jacob Mares, Community Forestry Coordinator. I'm kind of just here to help field any questions. I've kind of worked in and around the property for the last 15 to 20 years. So I'm kind of just here as moral support and to answer any historical questions if need be.
Any questions? Okay. Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question on, you talk about some of the trees that might not be able to be replaced. Are there some strains of trees out there that aren't found anywhere in the city or in our area?
Madam Chair, so there are a multitude of trees on site that are not currently, like we said, in the nursery trade, and these trees could provide a healthy urban canopy moving forward. And I think that this germplasm represents not only significant change for Wyoming, but it could be regionally and nationally as well. So, and this is what that facility did for us in the 1920s, so it's still here and it can still provide that same thing today.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Representative Storer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just curious, just the age of the trees that are existing there and whether there's concerns that a lot of them are aging out, or why this is important to take on at this time.
Madam Chair, through you. Representative. So these trees were essentially abandoned in the 1970s when this initial program was given up and moved over to grassland research. So the majority of these trees that remain have subsided on natural precipitation and a small amount of flood irrigation that when people can do it. So a lot of these trees, while they are aging, some are still very vital, and their care, the care that we're talking about, is paramount right now to save them. We have lost a fair amount of species out there over the years that could have been very viable and could have really helped us. So that is the biggest concern we're looking at, is saving this germplasm for future generations. So yeah, the irrigation and all of that stuff, like I said, is quite paramount right now. So in the care. Does that answer your question?
Do you have a follow-up?
Do you know what the water rights are for the property?
The city might be able, the mayor might be able to talk on that a little bit more, but I believe it's all city water that we're currently using. North Crow Reservoir provides a large amount of that. And the Round Top Reservoir, which sits, up above this facility, has provided the water to Cheyenne for a very long time. So.
Sure. Mr. Mayor, if you would add some information, if you have some.
Madam Chairman, the Round Top water treatment plant is right above there. And as we flush those filters and stuff, we used to just the water would just wash away. So we created a reservoir up there. So as we clean those filters and stuff, that water goes into a reservoir that we hold, and then we use that water to water this area and to provide water for the historic trees.
A follow-up? No? Okay. Anyone else? Questions? Representative Burkhart.
Thank you, excuse me. Thank you, Madam Chairman. So the trees that are there, species endangered? Do they exist anywhere else in the world? I'm assuming they're not native to Wyoming.
So, Madam Chair, through you, Representative, of the 800 plus species of trees and shrubs that are currently at the station, there is a mix of native and non-native. A lot of these trees came from as far away as Siberia and China. So yes, while they do probably exist in some form in other places, as far as the United States goes, some of these are probably single representations, if not localized in Cheyenne and moved to other botanic garden facilities and research facilities around the US. So while I can't really say there's maybe only one of them, it is extremely rare, and there is, I would say the majority of them fall into that category.
Did you have a follow-up? Any other questions? Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes.
Any other public comment? Do we have anybody online? Okay. So with the permission of the committee, I would like to just set this aside until our October meeting when we have some more information on the cost. Yes, Senator Grew.
Just a quick comment, if I might.
You
for
bet.
Just some added. So as you develop that, especially, this is just from my point of view, as if your number is trending this way, when you're getting ready to come see us, maybe talk about phasing, talk about philanthropy, talk about, the whole picture of how this could come together. Because even at the WAG you threw out there, I could see that could be problematic. So, putting it into phases, talking about philanthropy, are there other avenues to go down, might help this committee get to, something that might be able to get its arms around. So just to help you out to have a look at it. So thank you.
Representative Storr.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, I would just echo Senator Garew's comments. Whether you can partner with the Cheyenne Botanic Gardens, for example, obviously a really great opportunity there. They've already been involved in this, I know, for a long time, but just, trying to bring some other assets to the table and a vision for how we can make this work. Some kind of business plan or at least sketching it out would be helpful.
Any other comments, questions? Okay. Senator Ellis.
Thank you, Thank you. Thank you, comments. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick comment. I think this area is really a gem, but it's been needing some attention. And so I just want to thank our mayor and a lot of other individuals and stakeholders who have been involved to bring some leadership so that we can actually manage this resource. When we get out there, you'll see it's a really quirky place. It looks like it was, like stepping back in time in some ways. So this is important, and just want to thank, again, everyone who's here talking about it and coming up with some ideas of managing this resource.
Representative Singh.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would also like to say that it's truly a beautiful spot right next to my community. And while we were touring Fort Bridger, you had asked a question about what kind of tree. It's just such a pretty tree that you had noticed on the side over there. And there are several of those trees that are located at this site. And so I think that highlights how connected this is to the history of our state.
Anyone else? Okay, so we'll close this out. We'll bring it back next meeting in October. So now we're to kind of committee directives. So I guess as we wrap this up, it's my understanding that we have passed through this committee the Outdoor Recreation Trust and Tourism Trust Fund bill with some amendments. So I'm hoping we could see that completed with the amendments at our next meeting, as well as the other bill that we did, the commercial fishing bill, or what's it called? The Fishing Outfitters and Guides Registration of Fishing Boats bill, LSO 140. If we could see that with the amendments, I think that would be good. And then to see the Arboretum bill. And what else do we have? Anything? Are we good?
Madam Chair, I believe that does cover everything. Those are the two bills that were passed. We can certainly bring back the Arboretum bill. And then, just if there was anything else the committee requested.
Okay, did we have any other legislation that we would like to bring to the next meeting? Senator Ellis.
Madam Chair, not legislation, but, I read some articles about some horses that were injured and died at the horse racing facility in Wyoming. A portion of the revenue that's generated from the historic horse racing machines is supposed to go toward infrastructure and track safety. I think it would be good for us to get an update on what happened, what the Gaming Commission's doing to ensure that the facilities are safe going forward, and just really kind of getting a better understanding of what happened there.
We had a report on that at the last Gaming Commission meeting, and I'll be happy to ask, or if we could ask Director Moore to come to our next meeting and talk about all the things that they did to put safety measures in, and one of those included not racing 2-year-olds until they kind of sorted out the track structure and that sort of thing. It's my understanding that those were the bulk of the animals that had to be euthanized were 2-year-olds that had not, that this was their maiden race and they had not been raced extensively. And so I believe Director Moore would be happy to come and explain what measures have been taken to ensure the safety of the horses at the racetracks, because that was a big deal and a big concern. Senator Schuler.
Yeah, and just to tag on with that, from my understanding, because obviously it's in my neck of the woods, they did some investigation and there's quite a bit behind the scenes that didn't have anything to do with track safety or that sort of thing. It was some racing of horses in another state and possibly some things that were maybe a little bit illegal. So really, I was really glad to hear that the track is safe, and they did a lot of things to make sure of that. And I'm sure the director will have a lot more information. And I would rather not share everything that I've heard through their investigations over there until, it comes down from the top. But anyway, I think that's a really good idea to bring Director Moore in and have him do an update.
Yeah, so if we could add that. Representative Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know earlier today we discussed, and I don't know if there's any interest in the committee on doing a bill to increase the fee for out-of-state fishing licenses. So I don't know if we want to draft something on that.
Representative Byron, was that part of your working group discussions? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. It was not necessarily part of our working group session, but it is something I've been working with LSO on and simply ran out of time. And we did receive another handout that wasn't discussed today or yesterday, but the AIS decal situation. So with your directive, I certainly have it on my radar between now and October to potentially draft some legislation, but we just ran out of time on kind of the working group and what we had facing this meeting. So 2 concepts is review the AIS system and compare it regionally. And then the second thing is that exactly to the good representative, out-of-state fishing license fees. So with your directive and blessing, I'm certainly going to be spending some time on that and hope to bring it for October.
Okay, yeah, if we could have that ready by our October meeting, that would be great. Another thing that I had on my list was, as we talked about the Gaming Commission, last year we had a bill, we needed some different language in our statutes to make the FBI comfortable with the way that gaming employees are fingerprinted and background checks. And we in the House passed that particular bill, but it never made it onto the floor of the Senate. So we need to revisit that. And with your permission as a committee, I would like to have that bill drafted, and then maybe we could bring it in October as well. Been working with Director Moore as well as Senator Driscoll, who is the other liaison on the other side to the Gaming Commission, to get some language that will satisfy both the FBI and us. The proposed legislation we had a laundry list of employees that would be have criminal background checks. And there seems to be some concern that if then the FBI adds one more level of employee, we have to come back to the statutes to include that, and that maybe we could structure it in such a way that we wouldn't have to do that. Senator Nethercott was part of our working group on that, and I think she has some ideas about how that could be drafted. And she may, if you could check with your colleagues at LSO and see if she has done something in that vein, that would be great. Okay, I think maybe that's the end of our business unless somebody else has something going on. So our next meeting is in October in Cheyenne. If we could get a tour of the Arboretum, that would be great. And Director Schober has also expressed an interest in us visiting the tourism rest stop, and because it's really cool. And if you haven't been there, it is a wonderful venue. And so maybe we could put that on our list of things to do, since we're not traveling 20 or 30 miles for our field trip this go. And the State Museum was on our list as well. So maybe we'll have 5 days of field trip, half a day of meeting. No, but, oh, yes. Okay. So I'll defer to what you want us to see. So if State Parks would do that, and maybe we could initially meet at the Division of Tourism and do just a tiny tour of that, and then carry on to the rest of our tour. And possibly, if the mayor could arrange a trolley for us, that would be really, really good if we could have some transportation. So does that sound good to everybody? Okay. So I would entertain a motion for adjournment. Moved by Guru, seconded by Representative Burkhart, and we are done. Thank you all, and thanks to LSO.